Hey guys, welcome to Cyborg Kitty. In this video, we are going to talk about summing up all the numbers in a range. So sum all numbers in a range is one of the assignments on Free Code Camp. So basic idea is to take an input of one array, and the array is going to have two numbers only, and then return the sum of those two numbers and all the numbers between them. So for example, in this particular example, let's say you got 1 and 4 as an input for our function. What we want our function to do is return 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. That's what we want it to do. So how do we write up a function for this? So there are a couple of ways that you can actually write up this function. I'm going to show you using math functions for minimum and maximum and then running it through a for loop. Once I show you that, I'm also going to try and explain to you how we can do this using sort method as well. But let's work this with the math functions first, and then we'll go to the sort. So if we want to write a for loop for this, and they already mentioned the lowest number will not always come first, which means it can be given as 4, 1, 2. And what we want to make sure somehow is get the minimum value and get the maximum value in those two, and then somehow start writing a loop where we're going to start from 1 and go till the maximum, or start from the maximum and go till the minimum. Either way. So let's create a variable maximum, max, and that way you write a math function is math dot max. And this takes two elements as input and returns the maximum value in both. Now, we already know the array only has two numbers in it, so we can just write array 1. There we go. And for minimum, it's the same deal. And instead of maximum, we're going to say minimum. So there we go. Now we got the maximum and minimum values set. Now I'm going to create another variable called sum, which is going to be our final sum. Initially, I'm going to initialize it to 0. Okay, and now let's write up a for loop. So for, usually when we write a for loop and we are shifting to the position, we initialize it to 0. But in this condition, what we're trying to do is if variable I is equal to minimum, because we want to start the I with the lowest value, which is going to be the minimum value. In here it's 1. And then we want the final condition we want to check is I is not greater than the maximum value, which means it can be up to maximum value. So instead we also can write it as less than or equal to maximum value. Sorry, yeah, if I is less than or equal to max value, if this condition is true, do this. And if it is greater, stop it and break out of there at that moment. And then we're going to increment I in each position. If you want to actually go in reverse instead, you can also do it as initializing I with the maximum value and making sure it's always greater than or equal to minimum value and decrementing it too. It's just a reverse logic. But I'm gonna use the minimum value for initialization, write the maximum value and increment it. And that's gonna be less than or equal to. Okay, so here the next part is pretty simple. We are gonna add the sum, because sum at each stage of the loop changes. So initially the sum is 0. By adding plus equal to, what it does is it adds the number to itself on whatever result it is before. So we're going to add it to I. So what happens on the first loop? It's 0 plus 1. And then second loop, already we have the answer here, the sum as 1. On the second loop, what happens is it does 1 plus 2, and you get 3. On the third loop, the sum's value is already 3, and it's going to add to it the I value at that point, which is going to be, 3, and then you get 6, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now that we have sum value, now all we got to do is return sum. There we go. Now if you run it, it works perfectly. Okay, so this is one way of writing it. Let's say, for example, I want to use the sort function instead of mat function. So let's say I don't want to use it, and I'm not a fan of it. I want to use sort instead. So the way you could use sort is array.sort, then you would write function, which is a callback function in there. I'm just going to finish this writing, and there's a lot I'm going to write right now. I'm going to explain to you how it works out. So you have return a minus b, and then variable maximum is equal to array 1, and variable minimum equal to array 0. Okay, and then gotta close that and then run it. There we go. Okay, so I know I went pretty fast there. I'm going to explain to you what just happened. So the way sort function works on its own is the sort function sorts it based on the first digits of the number. So when you actually think of sort and you see, hey, sort of 9 and 10, we would think sort would actually send you 9 and 10. But instead, sort actually sorts it out reverse and sends you 10 and 9. That is because sort compares the first character on its own. It's almost like an alphabetical order for numbers. It's going to see 1 comes before 9 and it puts 10 in front of 9 in that way. So we don't want that behavior. So we use callback functions instead. And the way callbacks function work is whatever result is at this point affects the way the sort method sorts this array. So if the result is negative, it makes sure A comes before B. If the result is positive, it makes sure B comes before A. And if it is 0, it doesn't change anything. So in this idea, the reason why I used A minus B is, let's see for in this case, right? So if A is 1 and B is 4, A minus B is 1 minus 4, which is minus 3. So it's a negative value here. So what that does is array tries to make sure A comes before B, which means it's going to do it in an ascending order. So if you reverse this, you're actually doing 4 minus 1, which is a 3, positive value, and you're getting it in a descending order, at which point, that's the reason why I used 1 and 0, because initially when it was in ascending order, we know the starting number, there are only two values. So the starting value is the smaller one, the ending one is the bigger value. But if you're doing it in a descending order, we just swap the positions, it still works out. So because now we know the starting value is the maximum value and the ending is the minimum. Well, this is a little bit about summing all the numbers in the range. It all works out the same. You can use sort, maximum, minimum, for loop. So these all are just there to serve the same purpose. This can be done in many variations. I hope I covered all the basic methods that you could use to write up this function. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do hit that like button. And if you want to see more of my videos, do subscribe to my channel, Cyborg Kitty. I will see you on my next video with some more coding challenges. Again, have fun coding, and I'll see you next time. Bye.